Good evening. Welcome to the March 18th Parks and Rec Board meeting. We've got a full agenda tonight, so let's get into it. And the first order of business is the approval of minutes.
We have to do the roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. First order of business is a roll call. Mary, please.
Chairman Volkman,
Here.
Member Brush,
Here.
Member Hill, Member Jessica,
Here.
Member Colmeyer,
Here.
Member Torelli, Member Walker,
Here.
Student Dixon. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mary. Next order of business is approval of minutes. And as you recall, we went through the minutes for the November 19th and December 17th meeting at the last committee of the whole. We couldn't approve them at the time, so I would like to approve them tonight. And I'd like to combine those with the minutes from the February 18th committee of the whole meeting. And can I have a motion for approval of all three sets of minutes?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is passed. Thank you, Charlie. Next item is opportunity for citizens to address the board on non-agenda items. Do we have any comments from citizens? All righty. Next is Rob Carmichael with the Summer Camp Spotlight. Hi, Rob.
Hello, Chairman, board members. Great to be here as always. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about summer camps tonight. And having grown up in Lake Forest, it's something I love talking about. Lake Forest Recreation Department programs because we do take a lot of pride in what we do. I'd like to give you a little overview of what's going on with summer camps, some of the new things that are happening, and kind of where we're at right now. We have right now over 30 different camps that we offer, which is pretty amazing when you start comparing us to other similar, whether it's park districts or rec departments or private entities. But one of the themes that we'll get across is that the thing that we offer, I think, that makes us different from other places, that we offer a really good quality program at a quality price, but a high quality experience. And you'll see some of the bullet points for some of the benefits. But in addition to the great quality of program we offer, it's also because of the training that our staff get. They go through a very intensive 1-week in-service training that includes first aid, CPR, how to deal with kids. We bring in special speakers from NSSRA and other entities that make sure that our staff are well equipped for dealing with just about any circumstance. The types of programs that we offer right now range from early childhood to some of our specialty camps to wildlife, nature, sailing, dance, sports types of camps, and our counselor and training program that I'll talk about in just a second. One of the things we did that was a little bit different was offering a camp preview weekend. Our staff wanted to do something to try and get the word out earlier for those parents who are trying to plan out their summers. And so the first one we did was a camp preview day at the Deer Path Middle School. Is during one of the mornings of our basketball program, where we have a ready stream of traffic coming through, and we had the different camps represented along with the directors and staff. And one of the cool things was it gave the parents a chance to talk directly to the staff, talk to the directors, ask questions. We saw a lot of parents that were shuffling around trying to organize their summer and things like that, and it was really a kind of a neat thing. That one day, that one morning, we did it for about 2 or 3 hours, brought in about $21,000 in revenue. So it worked out really well. One of our incentives that we gave was a 10% discount, so a lot of parents took advantage of that. And one of the things we'll probably do a little bit different for next year is still offer the camp preview day, but give the parents a coupon or something where they have a week to sign up, because a lot of times they're kind of gathering information and they're not quite ready to make that commitment, but they want to go back home and shuffle out their schedules and see what works best. So that worked out really well. The second day, that same weekend, is February 8th and 9th. On the 9th, we went to the Daniel Wright Junior High in Lincolnshire, and they host an annual event that brings in camps from all over the area, not just public camps, but also private entities. They had camps from northern Wisconsin, all over the Midwest that were there. And one of the things that was really neat is that we heard a lot of great compliments from people within our community, but also the college communities that were really blown away by the diversity of camps that we offer there right here in our own backyard, that you don't have to send your kids far away to have that really great experience that we have it right here in Lake Forest. I think we picked up a few registrations. I actually was able to book 3 traveling programs for the Wildlife Center, so it was a kind of win-win for everyone. The other thing we did too is we offered a couple of focus group sessions for parents to come and give feedback. Now, we did not have enough response for those 2 evenings that we offered. Could have been a scheduling issue or whatever. But what we did do was the APTs were willing to take those surveys and distribute them to some of the parents at the schools. And we got a chance to get a lot of feedback coming back to us. And that actually provided sort of the impetus for us to make really important changes going into this summer that we think we've already seen registration much stronger because of some of those changes. One of the changes was moving sports camp back to Lake Forest High School. That was a big change. We also discovered that more parents who are signing up for our 2-week adventure camp would like to see a busing option, so we are providing that option. And then also provide more flexibility in scheduling. We've got we continued our 2-week sessions with many of our camps, but we also are going back to more of a 6-week traditional camp session for some of the camps like Twigs and McCormick Day Camp, where they have a really unique experience that we provide that really requires a 6-week commitment to make that work. But within that, we also offer 3-day and 5-day options with those. So those worked out really well, and we look forward to doing this again next year. Our counselors are really our bread and butter. They're what makes our programs, I think, better than anyone else's around. What you'll find with our programs, a lot of these kids come in as campers. They love their experience. They come back as CITs or counselors in training. They do a great job. They prove themselves, and eventually they get a chance to get hired for a paid position. So oftentimes we'll get counselors when they're completed sophomore year in high school and turning 16, and then we've got them through high school. A lot of these kids continue all the way through college. So we invest a lot in these kids, but we also get a lot out, and they're really the sort of the creme de la creme of the youth of our community that come and be leaders for the kids in our camps. One of the programs that's really been kind of revamped over the last couple of years, Joe Mobile has a big part of that, is the CIT or Counselors in Training Program. It's been around for a long time, but some of the things that we're doing now much better that Joe has instituted is developing more leadership skills. It's not just giving the kids a chance to get in and be involved with the camp, but also learning leadership skills. It's learning lifetime skills, learning how to interview for a job so that these kids are now ready. When we have positions open with our summer camps, they actually have the skills to go into an interview. And when it comes down to apples, if there's a kid that's been in our CIT program, they're probably going to have a much better chance to get in one of those coveted open spots as a camp counselor. This is just a little chart that shows kind of the numbers. Now, the left chart, let's see, this chart here, the FY summer, that's where we were at during our first camp preview day. So those numbers look low, but it'll show you that we did quite well for a 1-day registration. One of the things this will show too is kind of ironic is that in FY14 compared to FY13, you'll see that the numbers in FY14 were down a little bit from FY13, but in the next slide I'll show you is that revenue was actually greater in FY14. We think a big part of that was that when we first started offering the 2-week flexible sessions in FY13, a lot of parents kind of grabbed onto that and took advantage of that. So we had more kids, more units of registration, but they weren't signing up for the entire 6 weeks. They were sort of trying to see what camp their kid likes best. And then once those children figured out what camp they enjoyed, the following summer, they sort of committed to the entire session, which brought in increased revenue. So it's kind of worked out great for us because we still offer that flexibility with a lot of camps, but a lot of these kids are sort of finding their niche as far as whether they're sports or nature or sailing or whatever it might be, cultural, and they sort of find that niche where they can grab hold and then continue on with that during the course of their youth. So those are some of the numbers that we're taking registration right now, so it's certainly not too late to sign up. It'll be ongoing all the way up and through May, early June, as long as spots are available, but we encourage parents to sign up earlier. Some of our camps that provide busing, we do have a cutoff or when we have to provide the bus company the schedules, so we encourage people to sign up early and sign up often. So.
Rob, you said this earlier, but the sports is going back to the high school this year?
Correct.
Okay,
yeah.
good.
That was one of the things that came out from the focus groups and the APT surveys was that, and you'll see in the numbers there that they're going to jump way back up because people want to see that camp at the high school.
Great.
So, And once again, this just shows that what I was just talking about, that revenue was higher in FY14 compared to 13. So I think we're on the right track. We're moving along, and this is just a little chart, kind of hard to see, but it just shows just how many camps we offer, how many ages we hit, and we do an awesome job, I think. And that's it. Any questions?
Questions for Rob? Thank you.
All right.
Good update.
Looks good.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Next is the approval of the Parks and Rec Memorials policy from Chuck Myers. Hi, Chuck.
Evening, Chairman, members of the Park Board. As you recall, we were here last year at the Committee of the Whole, and we talked about the policy. Got some feedback from you, took that and made some changes. And I don't have any long presentation here. You did get a new copy of the policy, but I just wanted to answer any questions that you had. But quickly, obviously this policy, we established it to help us as a guideline for taking donations, and this is specifically just for trees and benches. We have also adjusted the policy. Last time it was pointed out that this couldn't be used at like the golf course and places like that. So where it had park locations, we changed the wording carefully to just either take out the word park so that it covers all of the city managed properties. So that was one of the things that was changed in here. We defined the idea of, on the first page under maintenance, where it talked about what would happen at the end of the lifespan of the element. We changed that to clarify it so people would know that they do have the option to purchase another tree or another bench at that point. Some of the values of this, project values, it is meant to be responsive to the needs of donors in the community, but it does establish policies and procedures that we can use, and it keeps in mind that we have to maintain these. So our Parks Department maintains these benches. The trees are maintained by the forestry section, so we want to have guidelines. You'll also recall that we have put in the policy that the trees need to be native to Illinois. So we put in some things like that that I think make the policy a strong document. So we're here tonight seeking approval for the policy. If you have any questions.
Chuck, I just have one quick question. Remind me what we ended up doing with the fee.
The fee, the fee stayed the same as what we talked about. We had researched a number of communities in the area, and it's still at 1,000 and 2,000, I believe, is in there.
That's what
Tree
it is, so,
donation,
yeah.
yes, across the board. And keep in mind, this does not cover Forest Park. It would cover the beach down below, but up top, it's a separate program. We would like to incorporate that into this document, either as an addendum, or we'll see the policy as it's finalized over at Forest Park.
And the ultimate decision as to whether it's appropriate to put a bench in a certain location, that's you and your staff, correct?
Correct. And we do have some maps of sites, parks, and other facilities that show where currently we have memorials. Forest Park Beach is a good example. But we've looked at that closely, and there's very few places for benches down there. So if people come to us with a request, we would have to let them know what's available. At other parks, we would like to have that as well, but our maps aren't as complete yet. Our goal this year would be to get that all finalized so that we could have the maps for all the parks, for example, or along the bike path or whatever, where we've recognized a need. But we do want to make sure that we're controlling where these go in.
So is the intent to have these maps for each park publicly available by the end of this year, so that if hypothetically somebody wanted to make a donation, they could come in and say, these are all the available locations and needs of the city, and they could select from those?
That's what I would like to have, exactly.
The only other sort of question I had is in two places we talk about at the end of the life, we're going to contact the donor, and one says we're gonna contact them by registered mail, and my only comment is, do we wanna soften that a bit to say that we will attempt to contact the owner, as opposed to making the statement that we will, and we will send you this registered letter if for whatever reason, by oversight, that doesn't happen. I would hate to have this document, sort of thrown in our face. You promised me you were gonna tell me.
Yeah, yeah, we can make that change.
That's my only concern.
We did I think in that same area under maintenance, we mentioned that if their current information is on file.
Right.
Right now, we have a lot of, not a lot, but a fair amount of donations that we don't necessarily have all the current information. So we have information, but a lot of times, even at Forest Park, when we checked on some of those donors, they were very difficult to locate. So we are saying that if we have it on file, we'll attempt to do it, but we can adjust that and make
Maybe
that
that
subtle
sentence should read,
change.
if current information is on file, the city will attempt to inform the donor and give them the opportunity.
And then
That's it.
there's also on the last page, the same thing concerning removal, relocation. I would change that language to be consistent. Right now it reads, the county will send a registered letter to each identified donor notifying them of the,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's great to have that intent, but I don't think we necessarily want to
That's a good catch.
bind ourselves in that fashion.
Other questions?
No, the only, if we're gonna make some slight modifications, Chuck, is, I know that we spent a lot of time to get the fees and comfortable, but since this is intended to now be in place and perpetual, should we add some language that says as appropriate, as adjusted from time to time? Because we don't want to sit here 10 years from now and come back and have to amend the policy because 2,000 isn't the right number. It's just not clear to me how you want to address that, but I'll throw it out there for you.
That's a good point. Do you envision amending this every couple of years, reviewing it every couple of years?
Well, we certainly need to review it every few years. I'm hoping not to have to come back often.
It would just
every-
simply be a matter, though, of bringing it back to the board at the time and revising the fees, correct?
Correct.
It could be part of our
Yeah, so if
normal
that's not
fee
cumbersome, I would
process.
be very comfortable with it, so.
I think it's pretty easy to change in the future.
Yeah, so it would stay at this price until we did change it, want to change it. We have to bring the policy back and make any adjustments at that time. But
Is that okay with you all? Or
yeah, that's easiest
would
for
you
us.
rather have more flexibility?
So that way we don't every year have to bring it back just because there's a fee in here. We only bring it back when we're ready to change a fee.
You okay with that, David?
I am,
Okay.
yeah.
Other comments? I have a motion to approve the policy with the modifications related to contacting the donor.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Chuck. Stay right there.
It's amazing how that agenda's organized,
Yeah,
isn't it?
I love it. Love it. So let's talk about the walking path and the bike trail.
All right. Now, this is an item that is on the agenda for information, and I'll get into why in a second, but these are both projects that were approved as part of the CIP. The first one is the McClory Bike Trail, and as you recall, that's the northernmost section in Lake Forest. It's from the border of Lake Bluff down to Woodland, the bridge there on Woodland. And as you know, there's a grant just south of there that's going to run through the parking lot part of the trail, and that work's going to start this fall. So that's going to be expanded to 10-foot wide and rerouted. And then to the north in Lake Bluff, it's also 10-foot wide. So we chose this section as part of the CIP under the bike maintenance plan that we would widen that. So that's what this project is. The second one is Deer Path, and that one again involves the reconfiguration to get part of the western part of the path out of the wetland area. That would go back to turf in some areas or some native grasses in another area. But the rest of the trail then the loop would be completed just west of the ball fields and all resurfaced. It is going to stay the same size. It'll be ground in place and just resurfaced. So this was, what we ended up doing was making this part of a joint bid with Public Works. So it's part of the street overlay program. And I should clarify, the McClory one is part of the street overlay program, which is a $1.7 million program that we have for work all over the city. But it's also part of the municipal partnering initiative. So we work with other neighboring communities to get better prices. So they run that through a joint bid process. So we're one small piece of a giant project. And the advantages there are that it provides us with quantity bidding. So we decided that would be a huge advantage. Not only that, but McKinley Road adjacent to the bike path is going to be resurfaced as well. So sequencing those two together made a lot of sense. So we're trying to get the approval for this through City Council on April 7th to start the project in May. And the bike path portion would be done first. Everything would be complete, landscaping, everything, and then we would get out and trucks wouldn't be in there. And then the McKinley portion would start just after Lake Forest graduation day on June 7th, I believe it is. So that's all sequenced together. At the time of this writing, the bids were still out. The bid opening was last Friday. So I can tell you that we're reviewing the bids. It looks like Peter Baker has the low bid. That hasn't been approved yet by City Council, but assuming that goes through, there was a pretty good savings with that, and we can keep this project in our budget. So that's the McClory.
Hey, Chuck, I got a quick question. I saw the size of the equipment that Baker used last year for the streets, and it's just massive. And I'm trying to visualize them back on that bike path, getting the work done without tearing up all the buckthorn, your favorite. Maybe that's what we
Well,
want them to do.
actually, as a side note, we're tearing up all the buckthorn right now. We
Oh,
have
okay.
a clearing project out there. It's not taking it all out, but we're widening the path. Yeah, they do have large equipment, but they also have lots of small equipment too.
Okay.
They have a lot of equipment.
Okay.
So, and typically, companies have to get smaller boxes to do that. They'll also be boxes that lay the asphalt, that is. But they don't. They have that kind of equipment to do a 10-foot wide path. They'll also bring in six-wheelers. They're not going to be bringing it in. They can't get on there with the semis. So it is scaled down. So the pricing when they did all of this, it was a little bit more for that extra driving and equipment. Not the equipment, but the extra that it's going to take to do the six-wheelers rather than semis. But they are very confident. The Public Works Department, very happy with the work Peter Baker's done in the past. The other nice thing is they're very close. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the bid is so favorable. They're just a few miles down the road. It's hard for companies that are bringing in asphalt from 20 miles away to compete with their bid. So very favorable to be a part of that. With Deer Path, the joint bid comes in with the school district. They have asked that some of their parking lots be repaved. So again, Public Works put that all together in one package. That will go out probably next week to bid. It hasn't even gone out to bid yet, with the intention of having that work done this summer. And with Deer Path, we don't really want the work to start until after the 4th of July out there. So we've scheduled it for around the 7th of July, going for the next month after that, potentially. So that, again, we believe that we're going to get favorable pricing because we're putting it together under one package. We can keep you up to date on that. However, just due to the timing, and they need to get the bid to city council fairly soon for the big program. So that's why we've kind of expedited this, and we're letting you know this is where we're at with it. So some of the values that I list on here, I've already mentioned the 10-foot widening, why we're doing that. But we are going to be doing some ADA improvements out at Deer Path. Wanted to mention that. We are putting paths into the actual ball diamonds, which we haven't had in the past. There's some nice improvements out there.
I know you said this, but the western part of the loop is gonna be moved east.
Correct.
How far?
It's, let me see.
Out of the swamp, but
Edge
It'll
of the
go
ball field.
just west of the west
Just west of the
diamonds.
ball.
Where it terraces down onto the
Right.
backfield.
So that you can get right up to the baseball diamond, so that the ADA connective piece is right at the backstop.
Got
So
it.
it won't be out too far. Plus, we want to keep as much of that turf without disruption, as possible for our practice areas and things like that.
got it, okay.
I don't know, Chuck, did you have a map or anything, or no?
I do, but I could fire this up if you want to see it, but it's,
Can you just pass it around?
I can do that.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Chuck, I remember when we were, I'm sorry, are you still in the?
No, sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I remember when we were talking about the capital improvement plan, one of the questions that came up with both that and the tennis courts, which we'll talk about later, was to what extent, the school district be willing to chip in since they're a big user of it. Did those conversations take place? Is that going anywhere, or is this on us?
It is on us. The path is all of us. As far as the tennis courts go, well, I'll get into that later,
Yeah.
but the school is not contributing to that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
And
didn't mean to
did
jump
we-
over this.
Did we
but-
approach them about that, or are we just doing this because we're nice guys?
There were some conversations last year. I know Mary had talked to the superintendent, but I don't have a sense of where we're at with that, if they're willing to pay. We were also going to approach them with some playground needs out at
Right.
Everett.
Right.
So we're hopeful to build that relationship with them, that that we can get them to tie in their CIP. I think part of the challenge was their CIP
Their timing.
and ours with these projects didn't necessarily connect. It would be very difficult for us at this point in the game to say, we want to joint fund this. Now with Everett, which isn't on the CIP list for a couple of years, now would be a nice time to talk to them. So that's what we're striving to do. I didn't talk about this slide, but it says bid results, but there are no bid results there. Sorry. It's just to show you the amount that was budgeted, and the actual number for McClory is $90,000 was budgeted in 14, and then as you recall, $100,000 was budgeted for 15. Because this project is crossing over our fiscal year, money will come out of both. And it's only 50 in here because we have another project that $50,000 is committed to. So, and then the Deer Path Park, we budgeted 100,000. We may see some savings on that when we get the joint bid in.
Chuck, are the savings available now on the bike path?
The bike path,
The Macquarie path?
there won't be any savings available for that for us.
I thought you said you were gonna come in lower than the 140.
Well, because it's crossing over 2 years. When it crosses into that second year, we're using everything we can. Our estimate on it from the beginning was based on the engineer's numbers. When the actual numbers, they estimated, I don't have the number in front of me, but it was within a couple thousand of what they estimated. So now, because it's crossing over into the new year, as in May, start of May, we're taking everything we can to pay for the rest of the path at that time.
I guess I'm confused.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about savings because they're linked up with the big paving project. But what you're saying is you're still gonna spend 140.
We are. We're going to spend it all. But as we got into this project, and as the numbers that the engineers gave us, as those evolved, we started to, we didn't add things, but we realized we had to finish that section. So when they came back with the quotes, there were a few things like the drainage that goes down the Woodlands Bridge. They realized that we needed to include that. And to include that drainage, we have to pave that section. Originally, we didn't necessarily have to do that, but they discovered that we did. So when I say cost savings, that's based on the numbers that they put together. Our original estimate for the project was less. We didn't know we had to do that much. So I know that it
I think
is
what you're
confusing.
saying, Chuck, is if, had we not bundled it with the Baker street paving work, it would have been more than the 140,000.
Exactly.
Well, that makes sense. It would have been simpler if you just said that earlier.
Point taken.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, so you're just gonna keep us in the loop on this? No action?
Correct.
Well, it says here, approval to proceed.
We just wanted to make sure that it really should say for information only, because
Yeah.
really what we're seeking is just to keep you in the loop that the approval of the financial expenditures will go through as a bigger
Part of the
package
bigger
with Public
contract.
Works, but the approval from a perspective of that, the park board knows we're working on, still on the CIP project that will benefit the community,
Okay.
so we're
I think we're good
good.
with it, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Let's talk about tennis courts.
All right, last one for me. Tennis court resurfacing. Again, I came to you last year during a committee of the whole, and we discussed a lot of options for Northcroft. And we had explained that we didn't feel that it was necessary to redo the asphalt itself, that we wanted to focus on just the surfacing. So we did get the feedback from you on that, and then we went out to bid this spring for Northcroft and Deer Path, because we realized that we could potentially save some money on doing, again, a larger quantity. So there's 6 courts at Deer Path, and there are 2 courts at Northcroft. We would be looking at just resurfacing, which we went through the whole step-by-step thing last time, but it's a multi-surface type application. And then this would include a whole new fence at Northcroft with posts and everything. But at Deer Path, it would just be new mesh around the existing posts. So again, the reason for doing this, the courts are in pretty bad shape right now, and this will extend the life of the asphalt. So as those cracks appear, I will warn you that the cracks will come back. They always do. Every contractor will tell you that. But that's why it's important to keep up on the surfacing. The surfacing should be done every 5 years is the recommendation. So we're going to do that, and of course that's going to increase the playability, safety, particularly at Northcroft. It's the court has some issues, especially with some of the trees that were shading it, causing mold on the court. So the trees have been trimmed back, pushed back, mostly buckthorn type stuff were pushed back. So all that work has been done in preparation. So the bid results, we did get 4 responses, and the low bid was 10S Court Solutions. And as you recall, Alex from that company joined us at that meeting. She ended up being the low bid. You can see that Northcroft came in at 29.1 and Deer Path at 47.9. And that armor crack seal, that was a price that we were given on linear feet because they don't know exactly how much they'll have to use. So if the crack's over a ½ inch, once they clean it all out, they'll apply this. It's a more durable crack filling system. The smaller cracks, they feel are covered by the normal surfacing. So it's just like the name implies, it's kind of armor coats it. So the total between the two was $87,800. So we think that the bids were very competitive. We think that we got a good number there. So as you recall, we did have this in the current fiscal year 14 for Northcroft. We had originally budgeted $75,000 because we thought we'd be doing some asphalt improvement. But because this method was chosen, it's $40,000. And then for Deer Path, that'll come out of next year's fiscal year 15. We budgeted $80,000, and again, we saw some reduction in that, so it was $56,000 is what was bid. I will also mention that on the last page, I have the final amount that we're asking for. We do want to put a new practice wall up at Northcroft, and we did add money for contingency, particularly because things like that armor crack, you never know if more was needed. We want to have a little room. So hopefully the $97,000 is what we're asking for. We think we can hit that. So we're requesting approval for both of these projects.
Chuck, I have a question with the Deer Path courts. Is there any cost sharing with the district since they're a pretty heavy user of that?
No, actually, the school district, they're not doing. Are you talking about for programs or are you talking on the actual project cost?
Yeah, towards the
Do
57.
that, yeah, that was their timing with their CIP and ours doesn't
Okay.
align, but we will maybe be able to continue those kind of conversations going forward.
It would be nice to engage them on that maintenance cycle that I was talking about,
Yes.
that 5-year maintenance. I would like to approach them on that now and say, hey, we've just redone this. It's $5,000 a quart, so it would cost us a lot even 5 years from now. But that is going to ensure a much longer life for that asphalt. So it's well worth getting into this cycle of 5 years. I think that would be an appropriate amount of time to give them to talk about cost share.
When will we do this work?
The work at Northcroft, we would like to start it, weather dependent, of course, but we'd like to start it in May. They do need temperatures for the materials that they're putting down. They need them to be above 50, I believe it was, so that might be June this year, maybe.
Yeah, for lucky.
But we're hoping to wrap that one up by early June. I'd like to have it done in the month of May, if at all possible. It doesn't take that long to do Northcroft, but because Deer Path is actually in the next fiscal year, that one I put second. It will start after Northcroft is done. The plan is to not shut all 6 down all at once. We'd like to do half at a time, and they've told us that that's how they normally do it. So we'll still have some ability to play. There may be some days where it's difficult, more difficult, but we are going to try to keep play going out there. And again, we've timed that. We would like to see that one done in the month of June as well. I don't want it to go into July with all of our 4th of July activities out there. So if things aren't looking good, that one could be postponed till later in the summer if there's a scheduling problem. So,
Other questions, comments? May I have a motion to approve the contract?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Chuck.
thank you.
Next is Peter to discuss the tree planting contract.
Good evening, Chairman Volkman, members of the Park Board. Thank you for having me this evening. I have 2 items to discuss with you. The first one will be the annual tree planting contract. This is something that we have gotten back into with the event of Emerald Ash Borer, something that we used to do in-house, but we're planting an awful lot of trees, unfortunately, because of the loss of an awful lot of trees due to Emerald Ash Borer. This year, we plan on planting over 400 trees. That's to include this spring, the fall of 14, as well as the spring of 15. So it kind of carries into next year as well. And it's important to note that I'm here before you to ask for money for the planting only. We do go out to bid for our trees separately. Again, this planting contract as well as our tree planting contract are through the municipal partnering program that we go ahead and set up with the Highland Park Park District as well as the city of Highland Park. For us, the project value is that the contractual planting allows us the timely installation of the trees, knowing that the sheer number and volume of trees that we're dealing with, we like to get them in usually by May 15th. Unfortunately, like Chuck said, I think it's going to be more like June 15th this year. So that's really important for us to get our trees in a timely manner so we can begin to establish them and certainly get them watered. The demand has increased, obviously, since EAB, something I mentioned to you earlier. It's a cost-efficient way for us to install these trees. We're finding that the vendors that we're going out to bid with are really throwing good prices. Again, that can be a result of our municipal partnering. They're dealing with a park district and two municipalities in the same general demographics, and so that may be one of the reasons for the lower costs. Also, it allows our forestry staff to spend more time in removing trees and taking care of other responsibilities. So we did go out to bid, as I mentioned, as a group. Nilco Inc. was our low bidder. They are a company that you may not be familiar with, being familiar with mainly a lot of the North Shore companies, but Nilco has done a lot of work in the Conway office complex for a number of years, and so they've done a lot of corporate work and residential work closer to Harvard, so that's really where they're big. Probably one of the more familiar names you see here is Guy Scopoletti, so some of the big names that you typically see in a lot of the contracts, the Marianis, the Rocco Fioris, this really isn't their bread and butter. Their bread and butter is more maintenance. So we feel confident in Nilco. We've worked with them not only as a municipality, but also as they've contracted for other corporate organizations, and we found that what the product they have to offer is very good. So we are asking for the approval of approximately $45,000. You can see that we have budgeted that. That's tied into the tree purchasing dollar, so that's why you see we're only asking for 45 out of the 100. The remaining funds would be used for purchasing of trees. So tonight I'm before you to seek approval for a one-year contract with Nilco Inc. for the planting of trees on city streets, parks, and city-owned properties for a total of approximately $45,000.
I know there's been a lot of discussion about the rate of planting and how many do we replace each year versus how many are coming down, and are we comfortable that 400 is still the right number?
We're comfortable that 400 is the right number for annual maintenance. We're not necessarily comfortable with the fact that we're not keeping up with the amount of trees being removed. So to answer your question, we're comfortable in establishing these trees to the best of our ability to get them established so they will perform long term.
How many are we going to remove this year? Best guess?
Well, last year we tagged 1,345 city trees, so we're looking at that number to probably increase by at least a third or a half.
Wow.
Now, keep in mind, you know, we are not, we haven't ever projected a tree for tree. We get a lot of areas where there may be 10 or 15 ash trees in a close proximity. It was never our intention to do tree for tree. So although this is a little bit behind and in the rears, we feel that it's an adequate number.
And what will be the process for the trees themselves? There was some discussion at one point of property owners having some input as to what type of tree gets put back on the front of their house, and explain to us again how that's going to work.
Well, we really like to engage our residents in the replanting of the city parkways, which ultimately is the entrance to their home. So we take a lot of pride in that, and we actually tag our trees specifically for each individual homeowner. So Corey Weirma from our office engages those homeowners to find out what it is and what their goals are, with the understanding that the city's forestry staff has the ultimate responsibility and certainly the ultimate say. So right off the bat, we tell people no evergreens for safety reasons. Right off the bat, we tell them no willows because we don't want to deal with our water and sewer department when they clog the pipes. And so we kind of go in there with kind of an open idea, although as Chuck mentioned and alluded with the memorial planting, we're really pushing natives. And we realize that natives aren't necessarily appropriate for every single area in town. But certainly that is kind of a trend that we're seeing, and hopefully it's going to be more of a rule, if you will, that we're going to continue to follow. So we will work with the landscapers, work with the homeowners, and it also depends on timing and availability. So you may have a homeowner who loses a tree in the summer, but because they want a certain tree, we may not be able to dig that till the following spring. And like I said, we try to tag, if we're tagging 2 trees for that homeowner in the same block so they look the same. We can't always go to one nursery and another and expect to find 2 trees that look identical. So we take a lot of time and a lot of pride. And so I wouldn't say there's a lot of hand-holding, but there's a lot of involvement with the residents.
So these trees would all be maintained by city staff is the plan?
They are all watered and maintained. They are owned by the city, correct?
And then the purchase of the trees will be a separate contract as well?
Correct, and it may not be a contract for the simple fact that we probably won't go over $20,000 with one particular vendor. We've already been to 6 nurseries. I'm tagging actually this Thursday. It's the first time they've let people out on the nursery because the weather has been so bad. And as you can imagine with the AB, there is kind of a gluttony, if you will, on the market. And so one vendor can't support the municipalities on that level anymore. The other thing I might add, because I think that's a good point, you will see us using gator bags more frequently. Those are those green bags that are on and over the trees. They hold approximately 20 gallons of water, and for us, it's more about water conservation, getting in and getting out. Because we have a larger number of trees, as opposed to having our watering personnel sit there and wait till the trees accept the water, we've created a system where we can fill up a bag in about a minute, leave, circle around a couple days later, recycle those bags onto other trees, and really get more of a focused point to contact watering system so that we're not losing water. We're being very conscious on our water usage, and the trees getting the maximum benefit from that.
Good. Other questions? May I have a motion to approve the 1-year contract with NOCO Inc.?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
I am also here tonight to speak with you and ask for your approval for the contract to be awarded for the removal of trees infested with emerald ash borer. Again, this is a contract that just started up recently. We were doing most of our disease and infested trees in-house. When you think of disease infested trees before, it was just Dutch elm disease. But unfortunately, based on the sheer numbers, we really had to seek outside sources. And so that's why we're before you tonight for the annual tree and stump removal contract. This does include trees primarily on parkways, but it will include parks and other city-owned facilities. We have gone ahead and are asking your approval and received approval last year for the awarding of this contract to multiple vendors. This is a little bit unique, and I can certainly get into that. This was a recommendation made by the PPL last year, and the reason being is that based on the sheer number of ash trees out there, the amount of tree care companies and providers that are out there, we felt that it was a lot better to partner with 3 of our lowest bidders so that we could get a better turnaround time. You'll also notice that this is not a municipal partnering contract. And maybe for selfish reasons, we realize there's an imminent threat here, and we want to get our trees down faster than Highland Park gets their trees down or any other community. And so we want to make sure that our contractors really are giving us the focus and the attention we need and not sharing their time with other municipalities. And we found that by going to 3 separate bidders, it keeps the first guy on his toes, keeps him going because he knows that there's someone else kind of clamming at his heels to get his money. And so it's really worked out well for us. So this again allows for the timely removal of those trees, as I mentioned. It allows us to have multiple contractors in at one time. And then it allows us to go ahead and take portion and ownership of the other removals that exist. You may recall last year we purchased a second chipper. We're running 2 crews simultaneously, so when you do the math, that's actually 5 crews potentially that could be in town just focusing on city ash trees, which is pretty dramatic. And so the losses are unfortunate, but quite a reality in today's society. So here we have for you the breakout of the bid results. One of the things that I didn't include in your packet was how we bid this. And so today we put in the approximate amount of inches that we bid it by. So you'll see that we bid 3 different categories here, 16 to 15.9, 6 to 15.9, 16 to 29.9, as well as over 30. We're giving projections based on our current tree inventory and what we saw last year being our base map. And so we're looking at about 3,100 inches in that category of 6 to 15.9. And then if you follow the columns over, we're projecting 1,600 inches and then approximately 400 inches. That's only a guess because it's really the insect that dictates to us what trees are coming down. That is based on our base map of last year. And so we do believe we will probably be we'll be over this number, but this is what our budget allows, and so that's what we're striving for. And if you were to look at the capital funding for EAB last year and the capital funding this year, we did bump up our removals to 200 rather than 150 to try to fight that. As a result, we bumped down our planting because we realized we could only handle 400 trees. So again, we're trying to fight this on the forefront with the removals and then kind of follow up in the rears for the planting. So when you look at this, it's hard to give you an exact price because it's based on inches, and so no one will base a tree kind of sight unseen. So the industry standard is to base it on inches based on a certain category, and this is the category that it is. And so for us, the low bid was Clean Cut Tree Service, as well as Canukin and Lucas Landscapes and Designs. So that is for a total of $200,000. And I just wanted to take this one step further just to let you, let me see, is it in there? Sorry. Kept you waiting. Okay, so I wanted you to see what those totals were based on our projections, because what I was giving you was the dollar amount based on the diameters that we bid. So you can clearly see that Clean Cut Tree Service here was the lowest bid by $20,000. Canukin being the second highest bid, and then Lucas Landscapes. Interesting enough, last year we did go ahead and use all 3 vendors. Our highest vendor, who was Canukin, only by $400 to the second lowest, was our most responsive. They were our best bidder. Certainly they're a local company, but you may have noticed that Landscape Concepts didn't bid this year, and we got the feeling that they overextended themselves. They actually not only bid on Lake Forest, but they bid on Naperville and they bid on other communities. And so, you know, they kind of felt like they would get to us when we could. And I think the results here show that we certainly weren't tolerant of that. We certainly didn't want to wait. We realized that there was a hazard here. And so we did use all 3 companies. And we would ask that you approve all 3 companies again, because we felt that it really made for an efficient and timely removal process.
Can you, just on that point, shed any light? Nils Johnson was our best bidder, I think, last year, or was it Landscape Concepts? Anyway,
Landscape Concepts
they've now
was
fallen to number 5, so I don't know what your interactions, and are you disappointed as to where they came out and not being part of this year's approval?
for Nels.
Yeah.
You know what? It's one of the companies I enjoy working with. Unfortunately, their numbers weren't there. One of the things that I might add that was new to us is that we realized, not having contracted out as many trees as we had in the past, that prior contracts included for the stump removal and cleanup. Well, once those were done, we were getting the phone calls to hurry up and fill them in with topsoil. So that was changing our focus, and our crews were having to run out and fill these stumps in with topsoil. This year we included the restoration to include pulverized topsoil. So I don't think Nels Johnson is really geared to be a landscaping company like Canukin and like some of the others. And so I have a feeling that that may have kind of raise their prices, and therefore they price themselves out.
Can you explain how you allocate the work across the three companies? I mean, how do you determine
Well,
who-
we give the work to the lowest bidder.
Okay.
We gauge how far and how fast they're moving. And then we kind of have a carrot, if you will. That's the remaining part of that list. And we ask them if they can get it done in the next 15, 20 days, depending on what we feel the threat is. If they can't, we extend it, we offer it to the second lowest bidder, asking them if they feel they can fit that in their contract. And if they can, then we bring them in, and then likewise, we extend it to the third bidder if that's the case. Canucken is a local company. The others in Evanston and Grays Lake and points further. So their responsiveness, their ability to dump their chips and dispose of their logs takes a lot longer time. And so I think that, like I said, Nels Johnson and certainly in this case Landscape Concepts were high because they underbid portions of last year's contract.
Got it.
Why wouldn't you try to use Canucken on the very large trees since they're so much cheaper?
Well, and we can certainly break that out. This was kind of just an overall bid based on projections, and there's nothing that says the city doesn't have the right, as based in our contract, to do what's most favorable for them. You'll see the numbers at about 400 inches, so it's not a significant amount. We don't have that many large trees. Our real bread and butter is the smaller ones, but you're right, if we total those numbers up, there is a savings.
That's like $15 an inch.
Right,
$15
and that's
an
certainly an option because Canucken bid it that way. And in our contracts, the city does reserve the right to pick and choose.
I guess my overall question, not directly related to this though, is, one, is the disease progressing the way we thought it was progressing? Two, are any of the preventative, or not necessarily even preventative, but things that are intended to delay the onset of it, are they working? And three, is there any good news from this really cold winter on that front?
Well, certainly you're not the first to wish that upon these little bugs, that the cold weather will set them back.
Yes.
The answer to that, unfortunately, is no.
Rats.
With that said, we may see a little dieback, certainly not anything that you and I would recognize. We're not going to go back 2 or 3 years. They have a glycerin in their body that really keeps them alive till you get sustainable temperatures of 25 or greater for a longer period of time, and I don't think any of us really want that at this point. We're
Minus 25.
I'm sorry,
Oh,
minus 25.
Yeah, I was gonna say 25. I'd welcome that at this point.
Wishful thinking. That was today's temperature. Unfortunately, that's not the case. So to answer your other two questions, first about how is it progressing. We had an idea that emerald ash borer affected green ash first and white ash second. We definitely didn't get to experience that until now, and so green ash really have become the best target for emerald ash borer, with white ash being second. So as we review our management plan, really almost on a monthly basis, because this is such a dynamic insect and we have to change our focus into different wards and sections of the city, we're realizing that maybe our focus with our tree inventory should be to focus on green ash, get those out, and then focus on white ash maybe a year or two later. We've taken somewhat of the sympathetic approach and environmental approach to pick out trees that are 40% in decline or more, and therefore we're not going through whole neighborhoods and culling them out. We're trying to kind of acclimate people to the loss of so many trees by picking out green ash and picking them based on, let's say, wards. We're literally coming in and denuding one section of town. So we're kind of somewhat sympathetic to that. From a management standpoint, it's a lot easier. From a tree planting standpoint, we're focused in one area and we get to water our trees. From a diversity standpoint, it doesn't work so well as we look long-term, because we're putting all the same age trees in all the section of town, and likewise we're doing it simultaneously into the other areas. So, I don't have an exact answer for you. I can tell you that we're looking at a number of things, but the progression is rapid and it's certainly exponential as we had thought. Your question about the treatment is very effective. If residents are using triage, that's a very effective treatment. We're treating approximately 650 trees that predominantly are streets that are predominantly 95% or greater of all ash trees. So those are streets that would have a major impact environmentally, certainly aesthetically, as well as the value of people's homes if we were to lose whole streets like that, and the cost is certainly effective as well. We also have made that product available to our residents at a consortium pricing through the Village of Lincolnshire and the City of Lake Forest. We have 2 years left on that contract, so what I pay, the residents pay. And so for those of you who have white ash, who haven't treated, you probably still have this season to do so. For those of you who have green ash, who are kind of on the bubble, we'd recommend calling an expert and looking at those trees before you make that commitment, because like I said, green ash have gotten hit pretty hard.
And to get the triage, what would a resident do?
The resident would call either True Green Chemlawn or the Davy Tree Care Company. We also publish that in the dialogue, so all the residents should have received that, and I believe we may even have that online. Price points are about $5 to $7, which is sometimes a savings of 50 to 75%, depending on who you use.
Thank you.
I think it's important to note too, the ward meetings, we had Ward 1 meeting last week, and then the Ward 2, 3, and 4's meetings are during early April, and Peter has slides up there that kind of talks about what's happening in each ward for our residents to know, and the triage information, as well as the native tree sale that we're partnering with Lake Forest Open Lands on in May. So we're trying to continue that, also community education, and get that information out to them in their hands through all the ward meetings as well. So
if I have trees in front of my house in the parkway that have the green band around them, when can I expect them to come down, and how do I interact with you and your team to pick what I'd like to have replaced?
That's a great question. You certainly can call us. We are a small crew with limited funds, and we've been involved in this year's snow program. So we do have a lot of outstanding trees that are out there, and so I can kind of give you a ballpark. Part of the removals are actually waiting for the May 1st budget to kick off so that we can get these contractors in to get done what we were unable to get done this winter. So I can let you know that probably May 1st you'll see a lot of activity as far as tree removal goes. And then we want to contact you, or you to contact us as quickly as possible. Keep in mind with our planting, we're sometimes in the rear, so usually spring removals get replaced in the fall. Fall removals get replaced in the spring, just because that's the way that works with the stump grinding and the digging of the trees and things like that. So please call us. Corey will come out to your house, visit you, look at your spacing. Keep in mind, since a lot of these trees have been planted, most of our underground infrastructure is underground. Where it was maybe overhead before, but we have electric lines, cable lines, fiber optic lines that were never there before. Right. And so those are posing some challenges for us. And, the residents understand that to some degree, but it's not the same type of infrastructure that we had 50 years ago when mainly everything was, kind of in the air and through backyards.
And I see some trees with the green tape and some with the reddish-orange tape. What's the difference?
The green tape is emerald ash borer. The red is Dutch elm disease. I can tell you that this is the first year since my 23 years with the city we haven't gotten all our elms down in the 30-day time frame. And that's just because literally of the projects I think we've been involved in. If you look back at last year, we had the BMW, we have Forest Park, this winter snow season, which was just really hard on our employees because they spent most every day plowing or doing something with snow. And so our goal is to wrap up our 12-inch and less ash here in the next 2 weeks. And then hop on to those elms, and then you'll probably see simultaneously our contractors coming into town May 1st. So we've got approximately 47 elms out there that we need to get down.
Wow. Other questions? May I have a motion, please, to approve the one-year contract with Clean Cut Tree Service, Canukin Tree Experts, and Lucas Landscaping and Design?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Next is a discussion of the grounds maintenance contract with Rich Paulson. Hi, Rich.
Good evening. Members of the board, thank you for having me. Tonight I'd like to present to you the grounds maintenance service contract that we went out to bid on this past year. In 2011, the park section began looking at outsourcing the mowing of other parks and properties, right-of-ways, city cul-de-sacs, and it has served beneficial for multiple reasons. This year, we looked at doing the annual contract with a 3-year option. We changed some of the locations that we are going to be dealing with. City right-of-way stayed the same, and cul-de-sac stayed the same, but we added a couple more city properties, and we took off a couple of the parks that we want to maintain, which would be Triangle Park and then Forest Park with the project going on, and Meadowood. All those will be coming back. We wanted to stay strictly in the parks mode and try to contract out some of the other areas. This year also, we've increased the maintenance contract to include some weed control and bed maintenance at some of the different areas. And that'll be beneficial for the labor costs and operational for us to get more done in other areas. The project value, like I just spoke of, will improve the operational efficiencies for us to deliver services in the most cost-effective manner. It'll also give us the ability to focus our crews on upcoming projects that are happening within the Parks and Rec program this year. We have a new playground that's going to be installed. The snow, like Peter has said, has taken a toll on pretty much everything that we'll be helping out in parkway repairs and in other areas. This will also give us the ability to improve our existing parks maintenance, the turf program we're going to expand on to help out with the athletic fields. We're going to be resting Waveland Park for athletic fields, and we're going to dive into that, treat it, aerify it, try and fertilize it, and expand that program there. The bid results that you can see came in. The low bidder this year was Landscape Concepts. Contrary to what Peter said about using them for the tree, Landscape Concepts is known for landscaping, and I do believe, like Peter said, they overextended themselves on the tree maintenance. This year, you can see that they're substantially lower. I did request reference for similar projects that they've been working on. Got in contact with Lake County Public Works and also Village of Libertyville and Village of Crystal Lake. They got nothing but great reviews. I mentioned with those gentlemen that I spoke with about the difference in price, and they said that's how they bid everything. I've talked with Landscape Concepts, the foreman. He assured me that they will be geared up and ready to go.
Hey, Rich, I'm looking at the detail that was in the pack,
Yep.
and they were really, really low on the city property category.
Yes, they were. If you look, they were, it's all over the place. It's really, I spoke with a couple of the other, with Breezy Hill and Herrera. None of them really have an accurate grasp on, I don't think, bidding any of these. If you look at the cul-de-sacs.
That's comforting.
Well, I mean, if you look at the cul-de-sacs, it's $11,800 for Herrera, and then Breezy Hill is $50,000, $570. I think, we tried to put together the best bid package and explain to them everything that we got. A lot of them did come out and look at everything, and it is bounced all over the place.
So we're confident, though, based on your due diligence, that Landscape Concepts understands what they're signing up for.
Yes, I'm very confident. I've met with them. I've spoke with the other villages, and they have given me no reason not to be. Landscape Concepts is the Midwest's largest landscape company. They have been in the tens of $1 million annually over the last 5 years. They are in 4 different states around here. Their list goes on and on. They've done tree lighting here prior to Peter's had them do the tree lighting in years. They've done everything along the North Shore. They've do a lot of work in Chicago. They're everywhere. I just don't think nobody's seen them here in town, and that's what they're trying to try to do.
It's a good price.
Who did the work last year? I'm trying to remember.
Last year was Rocco Fiore. And his contract, I believe, was about $58,000.
I mean, maybe it was not this contract, but I seem to remember last year we had the same issue where we were looking at some numbers that were all over the place.
Exactly. It
And,
probably was this.
And we had the same question about, how come there's so much
Right.
disparity?
And Rocco Fiore didn't even bid this year.
There you go.
But, well, that's a good question. We had good luck with Rocco Fiore. There was a few times in the startup is always tough because we give them the maps, we show them what we want done, Everybody says yes, 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 and then we kind of had to follow up with them and make sure that it was being done. Once they hit the ground, after the first month, things started, getting, good. We didn't have, the problems then. It's just the startup is real tough for them to jump in and get going. And I would anticipate Landscape Concepts will have a learning curve. This spring is going to affect, I think, every landscape company. It's going to affect us too. All this snow had to melt, and we are going to get rain. It is going to be a wet spring, and I will, take that into consideration when I'm, out checking up on them and making sure that they are doing the work.
Rich, just for clarification, you said parks like Triangle Park are not in this. That's
They're not,
going to
no.
still fall under the city for maintenance,
Correct.
right?
That'll
Okay.
still fall under the city, yes. We're asking for $55,838. We have $75,000 budgeted. That's in the operating fund. The rest of that money, some of it is budgeted for the Route 60 medians. Brickman currently maintains those. I believe the contract this year was around $7,000. The reason we go with Brickman on that is because we're tapped into them for the irrigation. We kind of have to, they handle everything in the Conway Park. So we use them because they can monitor the irrigation and make sure if anything needs more or less water, that they can adjust that.
I guess, but for them, we'd be way over budget. I don't know. Well, I guess I'd move to approve the contract with Landscape Concepts, 55838.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
you,
Have a good
Rich.
evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rich. Next is Joe Mobile to talk about the vending services contract.
As you can see, spring is a very busy time
Yeah.
for us with our contracts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Make sure I have the word. Our vending machine services are actually a very small portion of what we provide for the community. We currently have partnered with Croya and Office of City Manager to provide vending machine services at the Recreation Center, as well as at Croya. Some of our park pavilions have it, as well as the West Side train station has a vending machine. And it's a commission-based revenue source for the three departments. Over the past 3 years, we've had a contract with Canteen Vending, and that contract has expired. So in November, we went out to, sent out the RFP asking for different companies to give us some prices on the vending service, and we didn't get any replies. So then in February, we resubmitted or reposted the RFP in the local papers, as well as sent it to 3 local companies. And we were able to get one company to bid the project, which was Mark Vend Company, which isn't our current company, but so we had one company gave us a price. Mark Vend Company is a 52-year-old family-owned business based in Northbrook, Illinois. They currently have over 250 clients and 1,500 vending machines found in local governments, healthcare institutions, higher education facilities throughout the Chicagoland area. So they are prevalent in this area. Mark Vend is a technology-driven company. Their machines are all energy efficient using LED lighting. They have motion sensors so the lights turn on and off to save us energy. They have a VendMax computer system, which will allow them to maximize savings to us as well as revenues. And their drivers have handheld computers to keep the inventory and product selection as current and up to date as possible. They also enhance and have a satisfying customer experience, which currently our machines take dollar bills or change and that's it. Their vending machines can take bills of many denominations from 1 to 20s. They have credit card adapters on it, so someone with kid comes over after school, has a debit card or whatever, they can get their snack. And they also have an individualized product portfolio, which will mean that we will work with them to put products in our machines that are what the kids want. With their technology, they'll be able to determine what's successful, and we can start to offer a healthier option of snacks in our machines.
Wait a minute, you said what the kids want or healthy?
Red Bull all around.
Yep, no, we're getting a lot of that, but we can get into some more healthy offerings, healthier than just the chips, candy, and Twinkies that you see in the machines.
Sure.
Also, their customer service. They will have a daily accounts, daily with their handheld systems, can give us a draw by day of how much each machine generated. Cash accountability will be down to the penny because of that, tracking system. We'll be able to get our reports, electronically from them, which will help us then be able to track our portion of the revenue brought in. And then also the database product portfolios, I mentioned that a little bit, but we can track and figure out what we want based on what sells. So we won't have an item of, something in the machine that the kids aren't buying. They'll be able to say, this hasn't sold, let's take it out, let's try this. And we'll be able to work with them to better offer what is wanted by the people who use the machines, and both the beverage and the snack side of things. And then also, it's like I mentioned earlier, it's a commission-based revenue. Their proposal offers us 15% of all revenue, and that 15%, as you see, will be split by the 3 departments based on which department houses or operates the machines. So we would have 5 or 6 machines at the recreation center. City manager, office city manager would have 1, and Croy would have their 2. Then monthly, we'd be able to track the revenue, figure out when we want to, set up the payment schedule, and be able to split that revenue then between the 3 departments. Assuming based on our annual sales on an average of $25,000 a year, which is close to what we did last year, we're talking the city for the 3 departments would be somewhere in the realm of $3,750 of revenue. So it's not a large stream, but it's a great service that we can provide and still be able to bring in a little bit of revenue without any costs associated to us. So Mark Venn Company, with the line of high quality, healthy food and beverage selections, their rich experience and reputation and dependable service make them the ideal choice to providing vending service to the city of Lake Forest. So at this time,
Also the only choice.
we are asking for approval to move forward with a 2-year contract agreement with Mark Venn Company to provide food and beverage vending service for the Recreation Department, Croy, and the Office of the City Manager. Any questions?
Do we have any insight as to why Canteen did not bid?
I don't have any insight, and I was actually very shocked. I've been in contact. They have gone through a very large staff turnover, and everybody that was involved with our account when we started our contract is no longer with the company. So we're still trying to track, revenues and work out that end, and I think that might have shied them away a little bit. And also, they're a national company, and I don't think, the amount that they're necessarily bringing in on our machines it's probably fairly small compared
And
to
who's
local.
going to pull out their machines and bring in the fancy new ones? Canteen will. We don't have to pay for that.
Nope.
Okay.
And what was our revenue share with them? Joe, do you remember?
I think that's a little bit higher. On our snacks, I think it was 18% instead of 15%, and beverages was closer to 30%. But again, being a national company, but we don't have the selection and the ability to come in and say, what's not selling, we want healthier. They come in, fill the machine, and leave, and we hardly see them. This is a more of a local company that will give us a better opportunity to provide, a better vending service.
I think the other thing I would add is Mark Venn is reasonably local and in your community each day. And just my experience in being over at the rec in the evening, if a machine is down, we weren't at times getting that machine back up and going again for 2 or 3 days and getting handling the refunds to the participants. So I think this will give us a lot more customer service from that perspective too.
Yeah, and with their system, if a machine goes down, the computer will pick that up and they'll have someone out versus us having to wait till the next day to call them, putting up a paper sign that says out of order. And I think it'll just improve the quality of service that we're able to provide, when we're talking machines.
Are we looking at the same number of machines, same locations as
Yes.
currently? Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I have a motion to approve the contract with Mark Venn Company.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Boy, we're in a good mood tonight.
Presentations are so compelling.
That's exactly right. Last but not least, Fitness Center treadmill contract with Jason.
All right. Thank you, Chairman Volkman, members of the board. Hopefully we can stay in a good mood for one more, one more presentation. I'm here tonight to talk about some fitness center equipment replacement. Very similar to what we did last year, we replaced about half of our treadmills, and we're looking to do the same this year. Originally purchased in 2007, they've reached their end of useful life, which is typically about 5 to 7 years for cardiovascular equipment. As we continue to keep these pieces of equipment, that does increase the likelihood of continued and high maintenance costs, and this is part of a regular scheduled replacement program. The value of the new treadmills would be the free motion incline trainers, which we went out to bid for 2 of them, would provide additional workout variations to traditional treadmill workouts. For those of you that are not familiar with this particular treadmill, this one treadmill goes to a 30% incline. Standard treadmills go to anywhere between 12 and 15%. So it does add a significant challenge for those that are.
Kurt needs a better challenge, you know?
Who the heck does that?
It's like climbing Everest.
Right, so it does provide a different option.
Piece of cake.
It also demonstrates to the fitness center membership that we're continuing to replace old equipment and bringing in new pieces of equipment as well as different options for them. And is also that we're listening to them and listening to their feedback. We have had the demo units of this incline trainer in the facility since around Thanksgiving time and received some very, very positive feedback and continue to do so verbally ever since, even though the survey has been completed. And it also helps decrease with the potential of the increased and high maintenance cost of the older equipment as well. With the bid results, we received 2 bids for the treadmills. Midwest Commercial Fitness came in at $19,000. Direct Fitness Solutions came in at $25,380. We are recommending the bid with Direct Fitness Solutions. Although they are the higher bid, they were able to meet the specifications fully, where the Midwest Commercial Fitness, their bid was based on an approved equal for the Precor treadmills, but they were not able to compete with the incline trainer treadmill, since it is a fairly unique option.
What did they offer as a substitute?
They offered a treadmill with the brand name of True treadmill, and I think the main difference between them and the Precor treadmills is the True treadmill, I think, went up to a 12% incline, and the Precor went up to a 15% incline. Otherwise, the specifications were very similar, and that's why we did approve it as a approved equal for that one.
Okay.
So, the funding source for this purchase is from the capital fund with the budgeted amount of $30,000. The amount we're requesting is the $25,380. So we are seeking approval for the approval of these for the 2 Precor treadmills as well as the 2 incline trainers. Any questions?
Questions, comments?
No?
Wow, we're worn out.
So moved.
Got a motion? Do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Yes, thank you.
Next is the director's report. A brief director's report.
Yes. I actually only have 2 things, and that is to mention that we have our Easter egg hunt and magic show, which is one of our bigger special events of the year for the families. On April 12th, it'll be at Deer Path Middle School from 9:30 to 11:30. Again, recommend to all parents to plan well, be there on time, because those eggs go really, really fast. So it is a free event and one that is very, very well attended. And then also at the end of the month, just for put on the calendar, is our annual Smeltorama on
Yes.
April 26th down at the lakefront. It starts at sundown. We have entertainment and that kind of thing. So those are our 2 events that we have coming up. And as you heard tonight, I want to thank all my staff for their hard work on all the bids and
Yes.
Yes.
getting specs done and getting all that in. And I just wanted, Park Board to know that all of these items will move forward to City Council. They'll be spread across those 2 different meetings in April, since there's other city agenda businesses that are happening. So we'll be seeking council approval on them based on the kind of contract they were and the urgency we have to keep those projects moving forward. So those will be coming through council too.
And
So-
thanks for putting everything in the packages and so clearly, and the presentations tonight. It makes our job very easy, so thank you
very
for
well
that,
done.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One question, Kurt?
Sure.
Mary, how did we do on Reptile Rampage?
We had a very good event. It wasn't quite as crowded as past years, but we had a steady stream throughout the event. I don't have a financial summary yet, but again, I think one of our bigger events and continues to continue to stretch staff with the crowd throughout the day. But it was just steady all day, which was really fun and a nice thing to see. So.
Great. Any other comments by board members? May I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second?
Second.
Aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.